There's some business information about TNA's Slammiversary show. All right, let me. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up, and we can read this all together. I like to do that. Pulling up from the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and I think Dave wrote this, and I think people, because Dave doesn't put any emotion into his writing anymore, I think people took this as he was trying to insult Slammiversary, and that's not what he was doing at all. That's not what he was doing at all. He was just like this is legit what happened. But he said, thanks to the efforts of PCO and a lot of area independent wrestlers, the TNA Slammiversary show on 7/20 at the Verdun Auditorium outside of Montreal drew the largest crowd the promotion has done in many years. Verdun Auditorium was a regular local wrestling arena, best known for when companies would run shows considered too small for the Bell Center or the Montreal Forum, the main arenas of the time. In the early days, okay, so he's going back to the Grand Prix wrestling days. But let's see. The show featured several title changes. Yep. I'm trying to get to the stats. PCO also brought out the international title using. Okay. Dang it. Okay, but here we go. But the big story was the crowd. A sellout of 3,500 fans. So PCO was saying 4,000, but his buddy and a guy that's like a legit journalist in the area, Pat LaPrade, said 3,500. And I believe Pat LaPrade because I think PCO is kind of, big person, magnanimous personality. I'll swig of espresso for PCO. So I believe 35. I'm going to go with 3,500 as the number, with about 3,000 paid. Those are both good things, by the way. Just because it wasn't 4,000, that doesn't mean it wasn't great. It was. And they had about 3,000 paid. PCO, who got by far the biggest reaction on the show, spearheaded the local promotion, putting together a team to sell and move tickets using all of his contacts from 30 years of being a known star. He did interviews all over the local media and did appearances, moved tickets, local indie shows, and had giveaways on local radio stations. And he used old school indie talent to have a battle royal with local wrestlers, which was not on the pay-per-view, but the wrestlers would be able to get into the battle royal if they sold a certain number of tickets. Carl LeDuc, the son of Paul LeDuc, a longtime area star, who is the same Carl LeDuc who 27 years ago was shown being stretched by Stu Hart in Wrestling with Shadows when he was first training, sold 300 tickets himself and won the battle royal. The show not only sold out, but did so well in advance and was described as the super hot, classic Montreal wrestling crowd. So yeah, man, kudos to PCO on that. I think some people got their feelings hurt by that, and I think there's some AEW fans because now TNA is in the crosshairs of AEW fans, like legit. And they were taking the local area indie stars or whatever selling tickets as like a bad thing, when what they don't understand is for smaller promotions that is a normal thing. And they still feel like it makes AEW look better if they acknowledge the fact that TNA is a small promotion. Now, TNA fans, specifically the guy Defiant on Twitter, they don't do themselves any favors to stay out of the culture war by tweeting a crowd of 3,500 people and comparing it to AEW Collision's studio show, which doesn't have that capacity, but they were at capacity where they were at. They're not doing themselves any favors when they do that. That is not a smart thing to do, especially if you're like, man, just leave us alone. So it's a pretty dumb behavior by everybody involved. But if you're not a TNA fan and you're looking at this, this is only a positive. This is only positive. There is no negative about the way that they sold the tickets. There's no negative about how many people they were able to get in there. TNA has a fraction of the budget of AEW and has a fraction of a budget of even Ring of Honor, and a fraction of the budget, a fraction of the budget of WWE. So for them to be able to do over 3,000 for a show is pretty damned incredible, as evidenced by the fact that it is the biggest one that they've done in a decade. Okay. So I think that anybody that was trying to make fun of that, You're weird. And I don't have any respect for your opinion when it comes to pro wrestling. Because I think that you're a stupid person. If you were trying to make fun of the fact that TNA went out there, hit a local promotion, and did one of the best locally promoted shows in the history of that company, but like best local promotion that I've seen any company do for a long time. They really worked hard and they were able to show out. So much so that I hope that they go back. But here's my hope, because the next night they had like 1,200 people there, or I think they sold 1,500 tickets for the next night for the taping block, for the 2-week taping block. But I think they only got like 1,100 people there because a lot of people just bought tickets to be nice to PCO, but they ended up not going back the next night. Sunday nights for TNA have never really been a good night for them to draw since Anthem has owned the company. So it is more evidence that tells me that, you know, they got to stop doing these back-to-back nights in the same venue. They can't do it anymore. They're not strong enough to be able to fill places up 2 nights in a row. But they still sold 1,500 tickets for the taping block the next night and got, 1,100 people in there. For TNA guys at their level with their budget and what they're capable of, that is pretty damn good. And they're blowing past, I would say probably already halfway through the year, they've already blown past any other year that Anthem has had since they've owned the company as far as ticket sales go. And definitely pay-per-view sales. So now regarding pay-per-view, the WWE's added exposure of the product seems to have helped a lot. The first week numbers for television pay-per-view are 2,200. So that's television. You multiply that by 3 to get to the overall number, as compared to about 450 for Rebellion. So it's a giant increase percentage-wise as compared to Hard to Kill, which did one of the biggest numbers in company history, even with Access as the flagship. It's down 66.2%, but believe me, I would take that number decline from Hard to Kill as a solid win if I was TNA. They claimed on their TNA Plus site that the PPV numbers have beat Hard to Kill. Okay, so let me parse that part. Let me explain what that means. Okay, so this is the biggest number on TNA Plus, and that the TNA Plus number beat Hard to Kill. You guys got to remember that in January, not that many people had TNA Plus because it was new. And honestly, I didn't sign up. I didn't start paying until June. My buddy had an account and I was just using his account, but eventually I decided to get my own account. And that's because I just didn't trust the platform, because Impact Plus was so god awful. And I didn't trust that the pay-per-view would work. So I didn't even go there. And I watched on Fight like I had always done. So and honestly, my buddy, he and I like share a Fight account, and we watched Slammiversary on Fight too. So we did not pay for Hard to Kill on TNA Plus. So so the Fight numbers, so most people that are buying online were still buying on Fight at that point. But I think that they have slowly, like over the course of the year, started to build more trust and more equity and more consumer confidence in the TNA Plus app. And more people are starting to revert to the app, which is exactly what they've been wanting to do.